Alright, guys, time for another franchise review. The Final Destination movies. I'm surprised there's that many of them. I thought there were a few, but when I really looked for the Blu ray for the collection, I didn't realize there were five. So that was pretty interesting. I saw the first few months ago, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. So I wanted to see the rest of them. I was kind of planning to do that before Bloodlines comes out anyway, which it actually looks pretty interesting. Now, seeing these five movies, then watching the trailer, it actually looks pretty cool. It looks like it'll finally do something different and go against the five movie long pattern that's sort of been a copy and paste. So, breaking down the movies, I do have the Blu-ray collection here. Final Destination 5 film collection. I actually really liked the first one. I think it had a decent story. I thought the acting was fine. I thought the kills were pretty good. There just wasn't really a lot of complaints with the first one. I thought it was just actually pretty decent. And it wasn't the greatest. It wasn't amongst my favorites for horror movies. But I did really enjoy the first one. And then you get to the second one, and it was kind of the same. It sort of gives you that sort of, not nostalgia, because these didn't come out very long after the last one, but being reminiscent to the first one, I think just gave the same vibe as of the first one for being the first sequel, and having one of the original characters back as well also helped it feel interconnected. And in the movie, talking about Flight 180 and everything that happened is what's the reason for what's happening now. It just felt very connected, and it felt like they had an actual story for the second one. And the kills were pretty good. The acting I thought was fine too. I didn't really have a problem with any of that. And then you get to the third. And the third I did enjoy for what it is. I think the second was, in my opinion, better than the third. But these movies try to have like that one thing, that big opening. I think that's what they're known for, is the big opening scenes of just absolute carnage, basically. And so with the first one, you have the plane. When the second one, you have the log truck. And now with the third, you have roller coasters. And it finally hit home for me because I'm afraid of heights. I don't go on roller coasters. I just don't. I'll go on the baby roller coasters, but I'm not going to go on the big boy roller coasters. Just not me. Hate it if you want. It's not me. So that one was actually, it sort of was more scary for me watching the movie, because I've flown before and I don't have an issue with that. I've seen log trucks on the road. Now I avoid log trucks, but it doesn't bother me. Roller coasters bother me. So I think the overall story for the third was fine. The acting was okay. But the third started to feel like, I think the third was the first one that didn't really feel original anymore. Like I said, when you get to movie two, it sort of has the same blueprint, the same sort of concepts, and it's cool because it feels like the first one, which we all enjoyed. But I think the third is just started to, the idea of what's going on has started to become redundant, and it sort of becomes predictable. And I wasn't bored watching the third, but there just weren't really many surprises for me. Maybe some other people were surprised by what happened. Maybe people, when they went to the third, other than me, had different expectations and were actually surprised by what happened. Me, I just wasn't. I knew it was coming. I knew it was happening. And it was just, like I said, I wasn't bored, but it was just, it being predictable, I guess for me, it removes the stakes, really. Because it feels like people don't, when people die in the third, I didn't feel like, oh, this person finally got it. It's like, oh, there you go. Just like the rest of them. So it just sort of didn't feel important to the franchise, and I feel like the third lost its originality. That I think the second one was, at least in my opinion, able to keep from, for the most part. And so, like, I didn't have a problem with the third. It was just ranking the three. I'd rank the first as the best, then the second, then the third. And it doesn't get any better with the fourth. The fourth was, again, the same story, same thing. Someone has a vision about all these people dying this brutal way. And by the time I got to the fourth, I was just really hoping they were going to go against the grain and just do something different, just do something original, sort of push the boundaries of the franchise. And it just didn't. Um, and then the only other issue I had, other than the repetitive story, the fourth was the first one where I really felt like the acting was just bad. Not every character, but just the main cast for it. I just thought it was just bad. And uh, I'm not going to jump on the DC hate train, but some of these actors in Final Destination 3D, Final Destination 4, whatever you call it, they did end up on DC shows on the CW, so you can take that as, oh, so their acting must be good, or you can take that as, oh, that's why the acting was bad. For me, that's why the acting was bad, but that's just me. So the fourth, there's really nothing to talk about. I mean, I guess for people who saw it in 3D, probably had a better experience than I did. I didn't watch it in 3D. I don't have the 3D Blu-ray player, machine, what have you. I just watched the movie just because I wanted to see all the movies. So maybe for people who saw it in 3D, I would assume they probably had a better experience than I did. It just felt that the 3D moments just felt kind of cheap. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope the people that saw it in theaters in 3D probably had, I hope they had a much better time than I did. But the Force just felt repetitive again. The acting wasn't all that great. And I thought, especially for some of the kills, it was just extremely predictable. It felt more predictable than the previous three movies for me. And so it was just kind of unfortunate. I sort of had lost hope for this franchise after the fourth one. I didn't really have an interest to see the fifth anymore. I didn't want to continue. I lost interest in Bloodlines because at this point I hadn't seen the trailer, so I wanted to see the first five first. But I was told that the fifth is a lot better, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And going into the fifth one, in the end, it makes it all more interesting. I think the fifth definitely had the best ending. Probably by far. I mean, movie one had the best twist ending because you didn't see it coming, being the first one. But as far as the sequels are concerned, I think the fifth had the best ending. The fifth also had one of the best acting, I would say. Maybe better than the first one. I don't know. I just thought the fifth was really, really solid. Now, in movie 2, and movie 3, and movie 4, they all mentioned Flight 180 at some point. They mentioned this has happened before and reference the previous movie's events. But the fifth one didn't. They don't reference anything. And as the same stuff's happening, as it always does in Final Destination, I was starting to think about that. I was like, wait, every other movie's mentioning Flight 180. Why aren't they mentioning Flight 180? And as the movie continues, through the really decent acting, I think the kills, they also wrote more of a story for it. It kind of felt personal for how these people are dying. It felt like there was actually a story behind it. It wasn't just your generic slasher, time for another character to die. It felt like each death actually sort of proved its worth for the story, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. That's something that I didn't really think about in the previous movies. It just felt like, this is a slasher, time for the next character to die. The fifth, I felt like there was a purpose for it. So I did really like that aspect a lot. And as we finally get toward the end, our final three are having this sort of big showdown. And it finally feels like there's real stakes, which is something that the third and the fourth didn't have. Like I said, I had nothing against the third. It just felt like there weren't any real stakes for me because of the same story repeating itself. And then it was clearly the same thing in the fourth as well. So for the fifth, by the time they had this final showdown, I thought, this is actually well written, well acted. There's a decent story. Maybe the character could survive, or maybe the character should survive. And it was just a really climactic ending, going into that final fight with these final three characters. And as the final two characters that do make it out alive, they're ready to go on that vacation they wanted, and they're going away on vacation, and now you realize this is Flight 180. But this isn't Flight 180 again. This is the first Flight 180. And, you know, the characters in the movie 1 who are saying, hey, the plane's going to crash, we've got to get out of here. These characters in movie 5 don't get off the plane. And they ended up dying in Flight 180. So this movie then presents itself as a secret prequel. And I think keeping that secret, or at least for me, I didn't have it spoiled. Maybe people who watched it like me long after it come out, maybe you had it spoiled. I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't have that spoiled, because the ending for movie 5 was actually really, really cool, and it made sense looking back. That's why they didn't mention Flight 180, because it hadn't freaking happened yet. And so, sort of the same blueprint for the other movies. The final characters always die. For it to happen on Flight 180, it just felt like it earned its place in the franchise, being connected to everything. It felt, not having to reference movie 2, 3, or 4, I think helped to stand out on its own, which was really neat also. So, yeah, The Fifth had great acting. I thought it had a great story, had a great ending. So overall, I do think the franchise is pretty interesting. It gets repetitive. To me, it gets repetitive after the second movie. Even the fifth has the same blueprint. I think the ending sort of merits the reason for it to repeat itself, because it was the first time it was happening, even though Bloodlines now shows the new first time it's happening. But I think for what it's worth, I think these 5 movies, or at least 4 of them, are decent. So I would check it out. If you want to see these movies before Bloodlines, Bloodlines is going to have, I think, explanations to the first time it happened, but takes place after, the majority of the movie takes place after these 5 have happened. So I don't know if you really need to see all of them. I would recommend at least watching the first one, just to say you've seen the original one. But I don't know if it's absolutely necessary. You'll probably understand more Easter eggs and more sort of nods if you see the rest, but I don't know if you'd have to. So if you want to see the movies like I did, I would say check them out, because besides the 4th one, they're not as bad as I've heard, as far as the sequels are concerned. But I would just check it out if you have even the slightest interest. Watch movie 1, give the second one a chance, and if you lose interest after the second, then you're probably good there. But thank you guys for watching my review for Final Destination. I look forward to seeing Bloodlines in theaters and giving a review, see what I think. I'm really hoping that the story presented in the trailer being something different, I really hope that they can just run with that and not let that be some 2-minute subplot that they threw in the trailer to give an interest. I really hope that is the story that continues throughout the whole film. So thank you guys for watching. I look forward to putting out more reviews. Keep it digging, everyone. I'll see you next time.